Welcome. In today's video, we are critically analyzing Act 1, Scene 2 of Macbeth, a scene of battle, betrayal, and rising ambition. Before Macbeth even enters, he is praised as a hero. Is this the beginning of his rise or his downfall? Join me as we break down the dramatic structure, themes, and foreshadowing in this powerfully packed scene. In Act 1, Scene 2 of Macbeth, we see that the battle referred to by the witches in Act 1, Scene 1 is revealed to us. We see that the battle is being fought against the rebel MacDonald and the invading army of Sweno, the king of Norway, supported by the treacherous Thane of Cawdor. So it is a joint force. News is brought by a wounded captain, and news is also brought in by the Thanes of Scotland, Ross and Angus. They bring in the news of victory of the army of Duncan over the rebels. They also speak elaborately about the bravery of Macbeth and Banquo. Duncan condemns Cawdor to death and confers his title on Macbeth. This is what happens in Act 1, Scene 2. Now, first, let us look at the shift in the dramatic structure. The opening scene was undefined and it was ambiguous. The witches appeared, they spoke in riddles. There was a sense of foreshadowing, but nothing significant, no physical action happened in the opening scene. Now, from there, we quickly shift to the urgent physical action of the battle that we see in Act 1, Scene 2. Second, we see the danger to Scotland, the ferocity of the conflict, and the heroism of Macbeth and Banquo are all conveyed through the excited interjections and elaborate description of the wounded soldier, the wounded captain. The captain uses extended similes, and in his speech we find that mainly fortune, valor, and justice are personified again and again. Macbeth is called Valor's minion, and he is also called Bellona's bridegroom. These phrases are important and can be used in your answers. It is also easy for you all to remember these phrases. Another important thing that we notice in the scene is a very formal epic style is followed in order to describe the heroic bravery of Macbeth. So he has been presented as an ideal heroic character. But though a formal epic style is adopted, yet the scene never moves away from realism. It does not move away from the realism of battle. And we notice that in the account of the battle, there is a primitive violence. So we find a primitive violence in the accounts. We see different examples in which blood imagery keeps appearing. It appears throughout the play, but here we can sense, we can almost conjure up an image of gore and blood. Here are some examples through which we can understand that how primitive violence plays out in the description of the battlefield. Macbeth carved out his passage, and without any delay he unseamed the rebel MacDonald, that is, he split him open from the nave to the chops. So this is an example of violence, very graphic language to showcase violence. His sword, that is Macbeth's sword, smoked with bloody execution. So he had executed so many enemies on the battlefield that not only the sword was red, but it appeared as if it has been dipped in boiling blood. And both he and Banquo, that is Macbeth and Banquo, seemed determined to bathe in reeking wounds. So They were ready to reek in wounds. They were ready to bathe in bleeding wounds. The scene is, as I just mentioned, is filled with images of blood, and this image is present throughout the play. You will find that when the captain is speaking, there are occasional broken lines. These lines indicate the captain's pain and his exhaustion. Now, there is also another important stage direction that gives us a sense of battlefield, that brings in realism on stage. Not only the image of the wounds, but also the initial alarum that was heard right at the beginning of the scene is also important, because it presents a vivid picture of war. Though the war is presented in fragments, yet it is a vivid fragment of battle. We also notice another thing. We see that two other messengers come in other than the wounded soldier. The soldier was not aware of what happened after the fresh assault by King Sweno started. So here we see that the Thane of Ross, he had come in order to inform the king about the outcome of the battle. That is also an important realistic portrayal of battle. We witness in Act 1, Scene 2 that Duncan is not directly engaged in the warfare. He is an old king, yet perhaps he was a great warrior at one point of time, because he acknowledges the hard work, the nobility of the soldiers, the fighters who were ready to risk their lives for the cause of Scotland. And he was prompt to recognize their services, and he would honor them instantly. Another important thing to note here is the use of dramatic irony, and it is used throughout the play. We see that dramatic irony is used when Duncan says that he will no longer be deceived by that Thane of Cawdor. But ultimately we see that when he transfers the title to Macbeth, he is again deceived by the Thane of Cawdor. And this transfer of title arose in Macbeth a desire to achieve the crown. We notice in the wounded captain's speech almost a sort of prophecy when he uses this proverbial observation: so from that spring whence comfort seemed to come, discomfort swells. So when it appears that from spring comfort rises, it is also an imagery of water. When I had explained the scene, I had mentioned it as season. It can also be looked at as a water body, and it can be used as a water imagery. When it seems that comfort is within reach, discomfort like a huge wave of water swells. And he said, "Mark, King of Scotland, mark." So it almost seemed like a prophecy. Now when the war is over, when everything is done, when the battle is won, when the king sees comfort, from there a greater discomfort would arise. But this particular observation will not appear as an irony until and unless we see the later scenes, until we reach the next scene. Towards the end of the scene, the last line spoken by Duncan, it ominously echoes the words of the witches where they had said when the battle's lost and won. And we see a very important theme underlined here. We see that Macbeth has won this war against the rebels, but he loses something far precious. The winning of this particular war ultimately does not only turn as a loss for Duncan, but it also becomes a loss for Macbeth, because he loses the battle against his own dark desires and temptations. If you have found this exploration helpful, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. for more such interesting explorations of your drama. I'll see you all in the next video again. Thank you for watching.